10 a.m. Bye!
Bom dia, happy Saturday. Me espero que você tenha bom semana, whatever that means to you. Você manda todo produtivo, todo fun, todo se você tem ambiente de carnaval, então tudo carnaval activities, me espero que você possa enjoy those too. E me awako tem hope hende na Aruba ko ting some form of like griep of algo. So for all of you, beterschap, whatever it is, kuda going through, me espero e pa acaba, so I have no interest in getting it. Pero sí. Bom weekend. Happy Saturday. Awe nos ve papel di un tópico hobby interesante. Me te quiere me te Gyonne, me quiere nos ve papel un tiki papel English, is that what we're gonna say? Okay, well. It's fine for me, she says. Pero sí, nos gasi ave nota, no, but now sincerely Carolina, então nos sabay code switches we do.
Yes.
Nos vai papia di un proyecto hobby interessante per oggi. Mi te lagi explica su me. So sai che papia un tiki rivagele cava in passato. Però mi te chiede también mirando con in tempo di carnaval, algo che non sta online hobby con nele, non sta di cultura, to eigenlijk chi non sta pensa di no, di Aruba, di Caribe, mi te chiede también si non pensa riba si mi whack, mi social media in any case, contour hena da sharing, for example, Bad Bunny, so album Nobo, and to all of the songs, and to con feeling very identified, ku hopi di messaging, di music, all the way di un sense of nostalgia, pero también un sense of wanting to keep what is ours. Pero ese porta hopi difícil in un globalized world, anto there's a, some level of importance to keeping it, storing it, recording it. Anto, mi te quiere ku avi nostro papel tiki months in that context. Without further ado, me visit thank you to my awesome sponsors. Thank you for allowing me to talk about whatever I want to talk about. Thank you to Larash Pasay, to Total, to Gain, I appreciate you. E of course, na tour oyente na Nicola Fam. Se você tutin, Turja Sabra, ou se você tune out, then I don't like you. Pero, pesuran ko to tune in, Turja Sabra, to tahay topiko na aki interesante. Lagami sa Kiko Bosker Papi di Jelle. Of course, it's in Carnival season, so we will be talking about Carnival stuff as well. Pero lagami sa Kiko precis, Bosker Papi about. Agora mi tot bisa Gyonne, kung miki papi que reyon nang aqui, me senti dor que Carnival season to tiki mas largo. Mi tahay portam tiki mas chance, and the Bewaro elected, chosen, not they win, so don't go win, e weekend aki. Dus we look at papia, sì, dus rimi to be saki nan tata me. Pero rimi look at papi ko nang, so mi te quiero que se kita un topico cultura, en ieder geval de mi babbel, no sa papia about, was ako, challenges dan ko Queens on the face, and to participate. Pero también, what happens throughout like the rest of the year and stuff. So do let me know si tem algo outro que você quer papo de gele tam de carnaval. Anyways, without further ado, me debelaga Gyonne reintroduzimentos to our sincerely Carolina listeners. Claro que se você escuchando riba radio, e vamos bafe out or whatever, nossa live riba com fam so YouTube e Facebook, so you can switch to that.
Yeah.
Or re-listen after when you have more time. So Gyonne, tell us who you are, why you're here today.
Sì, mijn naam is Gyonne. Sorry, mi dato onde hena ng kudo si man passada e dato ting e grip. Dus mi stem ainda não tá full bom. Pero sì, mijn naam is Gyonne. Mi tasi differente cos nang, but I've been working in the cultural sector for like about a decade now already. Nang Holanda, pero tambe half of the time, the past 5 years porta Aruba é diferente, of Ku é diferente, hena na riba é ABC SSS Islands e Holanda. So very mobile, very hybrid. I think that is also the future. Sempre me tata interessado em pensa Kiko cultural memory bambisa ta stories nang ko nos conta nos mes e outro nang di mané, por exemplo, Aruba of wherever we're from e toch dat kritisch dingen zei tambe, pas om te keren. It's not always about, I think, keeping what is ours, but also giving credit where credit is due and a historical accuracy in that sense tambe. Dus me gusta zoek op
Origen, the origin.
Sí, pero também onda tem overlap de diferente points in time historically. Sí.
Met hebben we algo hopi interessante, and it's giving credit where credit is due. So the last couple of weeks, there has been some discussion about like music forms around carnival, right? And what is ours, what is not ours, where it came from, where it didn't come from, how we change it, how we didn't change it.
Sí.
And it's like a perfect example, the Oroku nos no por easily go back and to look this up, of discuss it in a, accurate way. It can create a lot of discussion, sometimes nasty discussion that it's not personal and that shouldn't necessarily be very emotionally loaded, but it's based on whatever stories maybe or you heard and whatever you had convinced yourself with, and to not necessarily like the like you said, like the accuracy. Yeah.
Sowieso met kere etta sempre interessante pa wak historical origins, pa so minota kere sempre ting origen, pero met kere si ku ting nivel de algo cultural. Si pa tuma carnaval mi nota expert, is met bisa al vast, pero carnaval actually comienza como dus in general, carnaval in Caribe comienza como protest against people who were enslaved. So it had like a very strong Afro-Caribbean, it has a very strong Afro-Caribbean origin. Esa nunca bona pakita, pero historically, esa lo cual thing, esa just proven as well, right? Pero carnaval a travel kuhena ng kuabing traha, por example, na Aruba tame na lago, to very good example, from the upward islands or leeward islands, I think they call them, different islands, anto esa kumisa mezcla ku e forma de Aruba. Dus mapabisa ku Aruba adapt su own form in that, just like a lot of other islands did. But nos nunca eigenlijk nota pape over die party para me kuila kumisa mezcla, anto mita kera ay nang hopi biyaha bamisa historical points in time ta missing ding conversation.
Esse missing ding conversation, pero também me daria para tem diferente hena nan kuting interesse ding sa compreender história anta passa, então me ta cara me que sai tata carnaval aya passa after aya pro me acaba dat tem ticket discussion over die bijvoorbeeld costume use, anto certo coisa com hena também para na Aruba não só ta HCC anto tihinna nanta mane si, pero porta you weren't exposed to it, so porta dinge bubble ko abota no, anto unia cosa tanto mane protest, right? Anto ku ne otro isa ne Caribe bijvoorbeeld hobi mas protest, anto nanta mane para Aruba no, it's about mane being pretty and stuff like that. Anto yung hena mane no, Aruba tame, non so ti un gruppo ku toto mane basta mane satire, anto a little protesting, ku toto gruppo ku hobi bihati mane faces of politicians, anto basta dus say tame to ways of ku no sa adapt to origin tame basta ku berata about also being pretty and to enjoying, etc. Pero no stambe, hay una manera para incorporar that
piece of origin.
Yeah, anto ku si no sono para quieto na gele, no sta hasmera un cosa que never existed. Of course, que no pasa.
A bit dangerous or problematic at the least.
Yeah. So, that's a good way to start.
Yeah.
Pero obviously nos discuss un tiki in carnival context pa kiko basta these things might be important, pero e proyecto obviously basta is just about cultural memory, not specific to carnival, not specific to this one thing. First I want to ask como se llega na una idea assim, então pa kiko nós como Aruba should care to have a like historical map.
Yeah, that's a good question. This idea came to me a while ago, like, basta en 2020, I don't know, 21 of so. So like a few years back after 20 mes during COVID, and we tata pensando over die diferente manera ng pa in a new way, maybe, or in a more accessible way, be like create connections. Esa is mi primeira idea. Like, how can I create connections in a way pa pensa over die historia, después ma queda pape com par de friends and dimi ku tameta creatives na Holanda ku ta traha ku maps, pero like other type of things. And then I was like, yeah, it could be like a cool idea to combine a digital map with a cultural memory. And if forma ko ita awo, dus abing eigenlijk de mi brain around 2021, pero mi notata ni akong team pa hasi algo kune, and then that started kind of mamisa manifesting the years after. I was always mitatrack ko un team, anto e idea sempre ta pa make people interested in their own story. So it's not just historical references, it's also kind of like seeing kiko hene ng mesong narrativo ta over the like everyday life ta dinos tema ng home things ko ta hasi tur dia come pasteci, por ejemplo hopi hene ta come pasteci tur dia of places you go hiking or things you grew up with or folkloric things, right? Nos tem 4 diferentes temas e dinga sei pro meu nível vou bisa tá para gente gewoon começa a pensar panang mes. Pas op gente não tá by archivo of tá by online tá work archivo não então já passa nós a talk about it in a way também tá ku dinge archivo não hope bia e nota perspectiva não de gente não local, but it's like the historical connection to the ones that colonized the different islands nang perspective the dominant dingen say. Dus mi kera gewoon activa gente para pensar para over die nang storia nang dos pa waxing ting connection entre storia nang dus dit ongoing research também nota algo kuta kla kaba. Então de 3 se nos haia de 2 nível nos pa wak junto com existing institutional archive sitting overeenkomsten ng die lokaal aan haya ay nang over die differente story na. Dus awo, nos ting un par story ko ta publish kaba bijvoorbeeld over die ku hene nang ko ta contando story nang ta conta over die kung et alta ta den tempo di lago ora ananta alta mucho, por ejemplo. Ting otro hene nang ko ta conta mas over die dynamics entre sexo nang. Dus man-vrouw verhoudingen die antes. Pas we hebben dan een reactie na. Nos target group dat ongeveer 50 plus. Maar nadruk dat toch wel 60, 70 plus.
Okay.
Dus hebben dan een tikje mas mayo. Dus ja, maar dat was echt diferente perspectieven ng angulo ng die storia ng ku normalmente we not echt papi ku hende over die je.
And me pensa even se papia over i gele probably ta ding mane un bobo.
Sì.
Das me pensa a me no ting hende nang basta rubiano di edate ting mi direct family pero si ding mi de mi angetrouwde familie, right? Anto bota escucha cierta storia nan me de masha interessante ora mi da sinto con ami escucha cierta storia nan anto mi tigo bisa ku meeting hobby amistad nan ku I am that kind of person. Me bira everybody's moms and aunts friend too. Anto ora mi hang out con nang, anto mi escucha cierta storia, mi hang hobby leuk. Pero uno mi escuchando di un relatively objective point of view pa sobra e noto mane mi famiglia su storia, basta.
Sì.
Anto mi escucha, anto mi get to compare, analyze different stories nang, anto mi hang commonalities nang, right? Mi hang certain differences that could be related to a lot of things. Porta inderdaad mane edad, pero porta tambe socioeconomic situation, basta. Unda nanga end up ta traha, mane hina nang kwa traha bijvoorbeeld ding lago ti un very specific way kung na perceive un temporada, basta. Anto bita sinti ko indeed unless butong hande ko ta go out of your way to listen to these different stories, there is no way
exposure.
No, pabo haya that exposure. I hera bota haya mane emesong story all the time. Nature fiesi familya nang anto hera bota bira mane un tiki mane about it. Kubo nota portado ne valor de un cultural context ku uno si abono si tell that story de modo di bisa e por by perdi pa sobra ku who is recording it.
Yeah.
Tas mi te quere say tameta algo bonito como te escucha, it's giving value to everyday life and to everyday people's perspective on historical context, because like you said in the past what we have that very tailored, it's very produced by people with specific biases already, and to stereotypes the Caribbean and the island people. So yeah, I like that.
Sim, met kere ta met a nice pa conta ku proyecto ta dus in diferente nivel de research, pero tambe parte promedia sei, dus prome conociega even na historia nang. Nós está trabalhando junto com a organização local, dus aqui nós está trabalhando amigo Ana Maria bia passar bem de plataforma, nós talk about that, so that's like the intervention part, like nós está trabalhando collaborate para com a organização local por ativar a comunidade com artistic method, dus está tailored to that organization's vision, as long as a nos haya historia nang. Anto ding 2025 dus aya aqui nos está looking of eigenlijk nos escribiendo funds para nos potraja com uma organização na Corsol aya aqui. Dus es é algo hope interessante para nos work com es different or the same in the type of stories that we will get. People say that already. So last year it was more around the theme of like everyday life, like we mentioned. Of maybe last year paso a active part the storytelling happened in 2024, pero aqui si mangi menos tinha launch na Aruba, but we'll get to that. E focus di sung di aya aqui ku henana na Corsol ta baita baibing. Anto ta baibing pa me personally ta sowieso my own podcast committee ku Eva Cruz that we talk about that life of coming and going, being from the Caribbean. But we're gonna focus on it mane a history di tinku migrate for specific reasons, mas tanto as like educational reasons. Nós também onderzoeken com a local organization na Corsol through aqui nós também hasi theater. Dus aí passa nós hasi visual arts, ante aqui nós também hasi theater para nós ativar a comunidade ainda. Anto dinge sei nós também wa que história nanta bini di maior nang, pero também di mucho nang ku abay of tabayendo Holanda cada ano of Merk or whatever awo kiko dynamics culturally e socially paso bata desconectar bo isla, pero também economically, like what does that mean for your social economic status or bo Kevin back of ora bata mane struggling student. Dus algo ku porta orbo by Merk menos cultural phenomenon, pero si bata by Holanda for years, maybe since the 70s, the last decade, ting algo kun nanta yama mane bursale nang, right? That name exists because out of a specific political context ko tauta ting tambe. Bursale nta eigenlijk insera kubo ta haya beurs kubo no ting ko paga mas, pero ese not obviously
the reality
anymore. So no sabay onderzoek ese mas anto hopefully at some point ding aki nos por wak kong ito connecta ku certain forms of migration historically tambe. Dus mit a kere hope biyaha nos nota ni actively pensa kiko a yearly migration di estudiante que men kunanta, like what does that do, like it sometimes create a brain drain, or most of the time create a brain drain paso no turhene cabin back. What does that mean if people want to come back? Ki sorti instituto nang a facilidad nang mesiting pa basta mane facilitate people ko cabin back, dus by being dus tore kone no sabay wak kong nos por onderzoek essay. And another part of the research dia kikutame tabay over the cultural memory iporta no pami, pero pa most people ta masun taboo, but I think I can mention it. In and of itself it's not a taboo, but like for some people in the context is historical queer narratives who existed for years in architectural contexts, dus letterlijk buildings, geographical settings, dus onder ting personal stories connectaken say, and we want to really do that to create eigenlijk from a socio-historical context, create a space that like those dynamics that history has always been there.
Yeah.
So het omgekeerd. Ku is zo'n die Corsano sa echt hone in to personal stories again, but the one from the queer histories of the Caribbean that más focused on a socio-historical context. Dus hoop je breed voor me. So we have a lot on our agenda. Yeah.
Sounds lots of fun.
Sí.
Escuchando part, I'm gonna touch on so many things. Pero parte, bijvoorbeeld de students lang ko tabay being ang tapos kiko impact ribe sa ita anto what it does to a grupo ko tabay.
Sí.
A grupo ko ta decidi ko ta being, but also a grupo ko ta stay behind.
Sí.
Anto ki push tini pa bijvoorbeeld mida kasi sinti. Anto this is just me going on a limb, hearing you talk, anto what it made me feel in my noggin. Pero mida ta pensando ko to what extent kada beha ko versar na tabay, mas just pensa que me as an adult, right? Adult ko traha ding public sector specifically, anto kumita pensa riba, basta mi lokiar manehena ng educa na Aruba, doing awesome work, hena di Aruba, basta hena ko compreendendo os contexto, etc. etc. Mita pensa, pero to what extent, cada ano, kung nossa parqueto na quanto di nang tabay, I don't think about mane, oh my gosh, nan toer ting being back. Of nan toer tabay being back. Met daar ga vanuit. I don't know what the percentage is, but some of them won't come back. Anto, met sinti we behave from that perspective as well. Anto, what does that mean? Of kiko mi kermean ko eseta ko mina da sinti yung urge pa mane create more opportunities bijvoorbeeld. Mi dove pa mes.
Sí.
Imita papiano ding mi bubble tampoco. I don't hear that urge to create opportunities for them either.
Yeah.
At all. Dus to what extent knowing ko that they will leave is some of them will not come back. Na mita pushando nos pa no tamas welcoming in some extent to them. Basta of mane hasiele aantrekkelijk or whatever.
But it's like a chicken and egg verhaal, I guess.
It is.
I think to be so there are different layers. So met a kere sowieso thing is like a cultural and like a social aspect to it, but het dame thing hoppie plat gezegd a financial economical side of it, right? Even though, but there's one piece about a buy Holland or whatever for studio and about being back. One, you make stories and histories and wherever you go as well. Pero met a kere hoop je heen te gaan ervan uit kunang no por being back. Anto met a kere parte di por ta differente than what you are saying. Paso met a kere hoop je heen ko met a pape kun na Holland, at least in my case, na ta bisa si pero mina sa si por being back paso mina sa sitting job opportunities for me. Anto met a kere is seita algo ku e gesprek of a conversation I think could happen because si kinang of anywhere on the islands hena tambane asa pero hende not being back pero na otra banda ting hende ku tambane per mino sa simi por. That's like a mismatch in behoeftes pero tama di perspectivo paso es un kutaker ko no por being back that's more of a block, right? Imita kere esay tameta mita kere ding a perspective ko akabi bisa. It's good to be aware of it because I think it can also block certain forms of innovation.
Claro.
Si bating hende ku ta geschoold anto nata being back na Aruba in this case ku knowledge ku mane ami mes like if I look at myself I have knowledge that ami personally no kaya hinka na Holanda, but if I don't really like go out of my way pa mane echt papi ko hende pa echt network pa echt hasitura ko na. I'm not saying everything should be mambisa super easy tampoco pero toegankelijkheid or like being able to at least have like a bureau where you can have these conversations or like you know like coming back, what does that mean, having like a community kupo yudabo ko essay met a kere essay lo a make things hopi mas easy tambe pa hende po saki ko e posibilidad nanta. Ando misaku na Holanda ting hopi organisasyon ko tamane ba misa mediate of the hasi programa ng entre isla ng i Holanda pa hende ng ko kier bim back pero te awo Mitia sama mawak hopi mas di mane Bonaire, St. Maarten, Curaçao, mino a echt wak hopi die organisation ng di Aruba. Pa mane bisa, hey, these are the opportunities that we have. I don't know to rin katrahan in corporate tampoco, pero at least it's like the exposure ay kutini na hulana pa hindi ko cabin back. It's not always clear what the reality is back on the island. Anto mi kere exciting financial, economical, cultural, is like social gevolgen tambe.
Exactly. Anto mi kere ko pa nos poriega na comienza genuinely bridge a gap that maybe needs bridging. Dus you comprende überhaupt kiko precies it's doing, right? It's doing, like you said, na hena nang kuta bayendo, ni hena nang kuta kedando, pero full nos structure tambe. I mean, no sabi, I wonder to what extent was si nos actually talk about it, pero tamo so po hender pa turhender being back, period. I don't know, maybe that is a reality. Basta, anto how honest are we about that reality? Anto how honest teori nos ta tambe ku estudiante na momento ko nang bay, sobra.
Especially that.
Yeah, pa sobra, what about having those very like tough conversations? Pa sobra, mi te quiero hopi hena na momento ko nanta bay. Ting mi conoce hena nam so mi tama bay ko grupito. Once upon a time, many years ago. I'm still a teenager, but I mean when I was a younger teenager. Pero
nice one.
Pero ora ko bay, te kara ko basta demi grupito to ting hena nang ko to convinced ko now the way being Aruba back. Mane they were like 18, 19, 17. Basta amin to 17 and amin to kome amin sa nada. Amin to later going mane into it like I'm gonna wing this basically.
And you'll see.
And I winged it by all means. Pero tating hena nang ko to hopi convince mane nang kaya ba study algo hopi specific anto nang tata mane amin at bay back Aruba mane misa ko lokal ko mikahasi minado bay por back basta mane pero sa hena nang go into like aerospace engineering for example basta anto nang tata acht mane mit bay hulana pro me basta mina po afford before bay merka pero mit bay basta do my best na TU Delft or whatever anto this was mina sa wax me get transferred to like a country that is doing like other stuff anto and that is what they are doing. Basta itating hena nang ko da fulan no mi basta mi ta pai anto mi pura pa being back when I was not being from a family of teachers or whatever and the full mi being back as soon as possible. And then mi tatopa nang once in a while anto mi bisa na hey so basta
how's it going?
Ato nanto ne mi gusto ba ne bibinang basta nanting no urge to come back anto hindi ka so it's nice or kubota sinti kubuting that type of freedom being in the sense of si babay yung career path basta there will be opportunities hindi ka rin ko to go in certain career paths ng na momento ko before balteta duro pa bobing back. I understand that too pero tingnan ko to go into very relatively traditional career paths even non-traditional ones like you basta ko met keren wat daarbij toch een sense of partij nota hopi uitgewerkt naar Aruba of porta nota hopi opportunities basta super specialisme standing medicine por ejemplo met un ejemplo que algo super traditional pero nos no mester 80 heart surgeons you know like anterior to what extent wat daarbij yendo bewust even though it's a very traditional thing and not een guarantee will be an opportunity first of all isi wat daarbij yendo de een non-traditional thing to what extent wat daarbij yendo ko hope ko there will eventually be room for you to come back and I don't think we're having those conversations enough and to what that does to people as well no pa sobra porta botaya nang and to bota contento to the extent ko bahasi lokal ba set out to do but it's not part of like your life plan or whatever of what you thought was gonna be it funny what bisa ting knowledge ko bulokar mane zat en kinang inoya nang pero just nota llega na gele of
no sa kong pahase say
exactly
sa met kere saita a conversation ko ting ko warda research I think tam gewoon in cijfers dus mane percentage die hena ko kiar bin back ko por bin back percentage die opportunities nang dingen differente sector nang
determining factors I would want to know those
connecting them as well to hope we aan Aruba henda papi de innovação pero innovação po wada hasi ding hope differente sector tambe en nota gis bambisa in sustainability to give an example una hena ta pise hopi viaja, right? Or tourism bambisa.
Me escuchando,
Sí.
I can hear Lucian saying this. Shout out to Lucian, pero esta bisa turora de original para innovation, nanta pensa me bli comprar um computer onto iPad, nanta ba inovar. That's not it.
Innovation mesta bijvoorbeeld na Hollanda misa tra hopi ko hena nang kuta tra dingen say combining culture ku tech. Like arte ku tech, like that is also a possibility. Maybe people are already DIYing it na Aruba, pero door ko na no sa kunang po pambisa haya subsidy of whatever. They don't create public spaces pa essay. Pasunanta kera it's just something I do. Mito just bisando un example, right? So I think that's also like connecting back to a research ko no sa hase over the cultural memory ko e mapa nos ta agri para of nos ari para ayan pasa ku hopi hende nota pensa dus hopi activo over di na mes kunanting algo importante pa conta. Meta quiere ser tambeta like activando agency back na nos mesong hende ng basta like being aware of certain power dynamics tama dus pa kiko bota quiere kubo storya nota like important maybe, right? And
were you told that?
yes,
maybe.
exactly.
Yeah.
And also like historically, like bambisong hene su familia not a fit into the general narrative ko hope biata waro contaba bijvoorbeeld Kiko Aruba su historia ta of example di carnaval por example, like what is that letterlijk besenos organisasyon yamasina, what is that counter narrative, pero eigenlijk nota un counter narrative, pero door ko hope biata nos ta wak story nan dominante anto nos ta wak Kiko ting ronde je, pero eigenlijk turcos ko ting ronde je ta met a parte di historia. Gis nos nota kies tim viaja pa conta full storia, pues nos sa tour historia nan tampoco of nos tamane ana sa kita ma fácil pa conta sina, but gis paso algo ta ma fácil no que men ko ta bom.
No.
Sí.
Y it's also understanding con ciertos stories santa get told.
Sí.
Sa sa que pone mi pensa Joeps, mi kasab, mi tawta na daskakel ma wij doen een presentatie.
Sí, mamá.
Anto, students are very interesting, they're very diverse in the sense of wanneer net naturong edad, onda kubuting wanneer students aan kuta hobi mucho ainda, anto butini nang kuta wanneer mas savvy, right? And I think it also has to do ku porta ng parents, anto kong active santa. Anto, Mita in 3 klas. Anto, natuurlijk met mensen gedaan, ongeveer, dus mensen een jaar lang. Anto, mita telling the story like every time. Anto, mita hasi van certain exercises, anto questions and stuff like that. Anto, dat hoop ik part, dus in cada klas mita haya van a different type of questions and reactions. So they say, oh, okay, interesting. Anto, mita conta nang bijvoorbeeld que processo tapa bo eventually by papin na United Nations or advocating for something. Anto, para me, one of the biggest shocks throughout that whole process was con caro eta. And not whenever they get invited and when oh my god, me to papi. Like you literally have to pay for it. There's obviously, but when se tiene un cierto nivel de privilegio y financial dominance or whatever, ding advocacy bubble por überhaupt afford if you even get that space, but speak there. Yeah. And oram ito tabi say, when that in students ang kuto full nang brain to glitching, when no to comprende how that works. Anto tini nanto durf di puntrame un tiki mas about it. Anto dati un class, dati one kid. At some point, my pull off on tanchi rubiano moment, and my puntriki su nombre su fam tanto yudikienta, because I had to know. Pero la puntrami dynamic die bijvoorbeeld kon gobiano reageren, anto kon gobiano holandês reageren, anto mas explica nang basta nos go through that whole like process, anto nos basta pay for it, anto ela puntrami I gobiano Holanda dona bosa placa, mane na ajuda bosa placa bekoske, anto weet mane good question, no, basta anto mane gobiano di Aruba, anto mas explica nang tame con tipo di fondo nita traha, anto si Holanda bisa no, dan Aruba no din placa pa dona nos, dus nos era literally fundraise the whole thing.
Yeah, was a fundraise.
Yeah, we did. Anto, so we paid for it. So yes, nos está comer el cabo. Anto, what do you do? Pero, nos abay. Anto, ito un effort ko nosa tuma pa sobra ko nosa convince nos mesmos ko nossa história tá importante o suficiente pa ora ko tumay waro. Yeah. E ko itawa ta pa nos discuss a meeting where we got to speak to the global report on children with developmental disabilities. Anto sowieso nós estamos consultants, no consultants, pero nós get consulted.
Yes.
The final draft to make sure que it's reasonable. Então, we understand what's in the report, blah blah. Então, já passa em previous meetings, like previous years. Pero metata de momento e também sinto que se nós vai dissect report assim anto echt lagasa kiko tá falhando se nós of kiko não tá bom implemented nos perspective door die escucha hopi outro país em previous meetings lang e door die você dissect report etc tá very peculiar anto se nós não toma space passou sa chiquito anto pa sobra nos ting mane porta hulanda kuta mane basta overkoepelend forever não se vai gaan vanuit que kost ons sort of functionar mes kost but they absolutely do not anto ito very important moment de decidir que nos voice como isla teeny tiny basta tá importante
sí.
E também para highlight é fato verão essa parte de Kingdom etc pero com nos voice nos concerns nos issues lang tá important regardless even a quantidade de gente comparar com um país grande tá hopi menos I don't care
mas é importante me te quer também hopi específico me te quer esse é problema também com hopi viaja me tá work mane trabajando como consultant like I do grant writing and I help with fundraising for social educational e cultural projects artistic também e hope viaja I ding met de consult heen ik wat een vraag aan per met de consult hope viaja mas também fondo lang anto door die political structure die Aruba tá parte ainda como status a parte de Holanda hope viaja nothing e tudo outro Island também to be honest ABC SSS eilanden nothing focus riba com e context riba cada isla anto sei ta algo que hope biata missing anto ta midden kong nos ta conta man historia nang even historical ones that is also then oftentimes missing like literally every time mita na Holanda anto mita bisa ko mita bing Aruba hene ta keda yama Aruba bijvoorbeeld Corso and that is like a glitch that is like that because Corso politically tata ting mane of award do na poder in that sense ko politiek ng di Holanda tata centered nang for the longest time right dus ela crea un dynamic hopi estranho on a personal level I would call it like that pero tambe ding a narrative in what we're talking about today a narrative tata ko ainda de hopi hena ng mente bijvoorbeeld Corso ta is centrale punt dus ora mi papa di Aruba hena not pensa di Aruba nanta pensa Corso and that is because of how we were told stories or how people in the Netherlands specifically were told or not told actually stories about historical facts também de ABC SSS Islands dus ko Aruba not un Bonaire not un Saba un Station not un Saint Martin e Corso not un Bonaire voor Aruba of un Saba or whatever tampoco right so is esta eigenlijk o proyecto também local me quer of nós at this point door ko nota diz mi proyecto mas nos quer puxa like we want to create similarities but also what are the differences like as te dingen story bijvoorbeeld die lago hoop je heen na Holanda if we see that perspective to talk about Shell por ejemplo também paso Shell ta connected ainda hoop ik Holanda e story nang pero hoop je heen which is good that they talk about it because Shell alaga hoop je environmentally wise hope ik was malo bijvoorbeeld na Corso dingen ouwe and stuff like I think there's been a research done by that pero dame een rol die Shell bijvoorbeeld in the Second World War pero yung hende na Holanda when they talk about historical contexts not to talk about lago e rol di lago dingen Second World War por ejemplo right so that already is like a whole drag to get on the table dus mita hele importante like what you said as well ku ora bota because of colonialism and how that whole it still affects us up until this day politically vooral tambe ku eta hope importante pa push the narratives ku a existi of ku ta exist tambe of existi all that time as well in the public spaces pa sobra si no bota queda bisa the same stories.
Anto e nossa ciele mi devisa nossa as un community ku the amount of people ku letterlijk pontravo basta mane pero who cares of mane basta it's not that special of it's not that important of the otro hende su problema of nanga regelen kaba of hulana tos bosi regelen mane un cosco nosso carga um nível de responsabilidade. Então é bem interessante que eu vi isso que eu vou pôr para renda, vou papo com renda tem acho que muito portar passar ali fora é para de como história überhaupt também era. Você sabe como überhaupt é importante. Então it has to do with basta power dynamics tanto que nós tá crescer den Caribe, den isla nan, com uma mentalidade que de nós eigenlijk tanto que menos, você? E nós temos all the time, é viva den everyday life, você? Nós tá na trabalho, por exemplo, você? Nós tá na escola, gewoon automaticamente, se gente holandês specifically bijvoorbeeld, bem hasi trabalho falga sina, presumption of competence, kutini, aha. Anto eta mita kere by tuma kusibo por papel di basta coisa grande pero também the everyday things anto realizar com tanta mesmo importante com somebody else's everyday things basta nós também move tiki mais forte esse anto donan nós mesmo história nós mesmo vida nós mesmo basta existence or whatever mais valor so I think that's yeah, very interesting.
Pero quiere saqueta parte mane underrated like hopi hande hoy en día talk about and I think it's super important. I mean different indigenous tribes have been doing this for years like working on decolonizing societies, right? I'm not saying that it's not important. I'm just saying like in the world of the arts of the cultural sector hopi biya hande talk about like decolonizing as this next hot big thing terwijl itong everyday process of tackling our own biases, our own racist presumptions, our own privileges in general, right? Anto mita quiere pami e proyecto aqui que nós está haciendo ta forma que minota bisa it's to decolonize. No, I'm just saying think about your own story and it's important to see like all of the stories that maybe we have missed in the past that were always there. Kupami honestly tamit parte de colonizing because colonization of a dominance di cierto narrativo nang tambe a zorger voor ku bonota wak po mesong storia mane mesong importante. So a project like this for me sowieso from the genesis from the beginning kaba mitat mane I think it'll help people to really look at it from like, hey, this is an important story and I think it's an important story because I see on the map un otro gente que tamiting a similar experience. Like that is just like a human thing as well, right? Ora no sawa kung otro gente hopi biyaha ting a similar story like ours. It helps us to a certain extent in our mental health sometimes even maybe, right? So say nos quer activar tambe ora gente ta bayri ba e map anto wak história não. Sí.
Me tinko pensa também immediately riba bijvoorbeeld aan een obo kakabi pasa também. And I think about it specifically sobre me sinti na Aruba nos relationship ku mani porta things ang ku ta more mani indigenous ta mas severed ku porta na otro isla etc. Anto there's this thing ku hopi hen in Aruba sita ha si fini aya the thought of like kurufuku was antes completely based on like the idea of like witchcraft and stuff like that, right? Pero nos no quer llame así. Anto me da love to challenge that thought. Pa sobra me también by all means my mama come from indigenous background. This nos ting hopi practices tanku it's like it's just been there until we just do them kind of thing. Pero me da pundra gente mane de com bota pensa aceita mané tiki embarrassing of course aceita mané less than maybe like a different practice like cheering ku champagne.
Sí. That's a good question.
Yeah, like Kiko de con mané basta karon ko sensa den bokas, tabani if anto do I want to share it or not, and do I want people to know or not? Oh my gosh, nasa si kiara hena to pa mina kasi sensa or whatever. Pero of mani hena justify ng mens or nato compra sensa mani laterlijk or makumpra man minsan sa aqui, mas tem senhoras pisa mane, não ja, met has hier gewoon bij mensen costumer, no comita keer den kosten keer, gewoon costumer, met why are you justifying yourself? Like nobody, I was thinking my brain may not be say, but it's like nobody cares. Nobody's asking you to justify. Yeah. Pero I don't hear people justifying di kung nandiyo cheering ko like expensive champagne, anto basta algo ko no da wara trahaki lang, anto basta has like we just adopted because maybe we started watching it in a movie or somewhere. Somebody brought it from Europe. Basta? Anto, say, tawar miraman is chic and stuff. Anto, basta? It's like, ato, it's a full money. Maybe we have to talk about it a little bit more. I mean, why do we feel weird about some things and not weird about the other things?
Yeah.
Anto, it has to do with that, right? Kung nos tawak nos mes, anto kung nos tabaloran nos mes, un kosang of course, ang kuta mas cerca di nos. So, of course, yes, not algo sabi sa mga start na Aruba Falbacino, pero since way back then mga indigenous coast, it must related to this part of the world, right? To this nos identity as this part of the world, being, Central Caribbean y Latin America. Pero nos di muito ku kosang asina chiquito all the way to kosang hopi grande. É shame ku hena tinde importar pa bisa quando com pa se dia, right? Pa sobra ja, oké, passage to fried, pero stel je voor wat we ovenbeken, een example. How different is it kom wanneer pankokeshi, for example? But it's like we have glorified pankokeshi, see, of no sahaya mas acceptable.
See.
Anto si bohun tele full manteca, then it's gonna be like around the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's like we have decided what was ours, no, lo cual tadi nos, tiki mane, what's up? Menos. And we should be ashamed and of not attach shame to it versus portabo não supposed to comendo pão queijo tampouco do dia. That is what I'm saying. Mane, basta, pero ito kung no by bibisami ko tabi hoge otro. Mane,
like
but nutritional value wise, like I will pull up facts and to be like, why? Bisami di kong. Mane,
sí, dus die kan maat staven dan kung nos ta wak algo, kung nos ta judge algo por ta tam, ding nos mes y ding otro. For sure.
Anyways, this was a very fun conversation, as I thought it would have been.
It's always nice talking.
Yeah. Okay, so question. No sa papel mas hobi mes. Pero mi kapon trabo give us some like concrete details about mapping until could we get launched in a week and a half. So excited. What should people look out for if they want to like be part of like the launch or whatever? Tell us about it.
Sowieso kaba por wak a beta version as they call it the map online. Dus we hebben een idee. Het www.counternarratives.nl and then /Archival Horizons Map of dat is bij counternarratives.nl en dan betal kubo po klikken riba nos website.
I will share the link in my stories.
Yes. Anto dia 31 de januari nós também lancei na Aruba por Cambay nós também hacen na Edu Campus a former bombini den Kaya dus durante casi amiga sa una bombinita or someone's parent or caretaker lo sa una bombinita bombini bazar ainang de campus gallery simnota herata awotame pero nantame tinha parte di lante onda nos tabaita where they give like the classes with the kids anto nos tabay binko otro tabay ting pari sprekers nang nos ting mita pending dus personaje mi não também menciona ainda, pero sowieso nós vai ter Ana Maria que está até, Soyin que é artista que nós atrás com né, nós vai ter Mandy Laclay que também papia mais com nós over the parte de research from a community perspective, como te quero toch importante e just like maybe connecting it to academic research também, tem com nós a research together. E outra pessoa me não pode mencionar ainda, porque não está confirmed, pero se bem é um artista de Aruba que está hopi master, então nós também temos some acoustic music de Patrick Rical as well. So também está como chill thing, onde nós vai papo com outro, começar Shetor para 16 horas me bolo po cana drenta acaba. Também tem just some snacks. De shetor para 8 horas echte programa também tá, of 8 horas de 5, depende com lhe nos to go through it. Maximal 8 horas de 5, então de 8 horas de 5 para 9 horas nos pode chill again and then yeah, it's done. Popo RSVP na 749-0885. Just be someone, hey, I want to be there. It's free, but it's handy for us to know for the snacks and drinks. And of popo manda nos email na saludos, mane bota bisa saludos, ding papiamento at counternarratives.nl. Of gewoon manda nos DM, riba Instagram, counter_narratives. Very easy to find. Pero si Carolina ta
I will tag you anto sowieso el link tambe pa e beta version mi tikere sales nice.
Sí.
Any last messages comfortable can leave people with as they heard today's conversation?
Yes. Pa in map si bota hai interessante sowieso ting section kubo po shareable story ko us. So like we have a form that you can fill in. It's anonymous. Paso nos ta focus riba e geographical location di unde e storia ta bing e no e persona per se. But I can talk more about that during the launch. Ere hende lo comprende pa kiko nos hace say. Dus bo shareable story or si bo sako bo wela of bo welo of bo tanchi or whatever has an interesting story. Be that person that uploads it for them. That would be amazing. You can always ask us if you have questions. Ting yung voorbeeld kaba, dus po sa ongeveer ki tipo di storia ting. Is het algo que we can leave for now? And ja, llega dia 31, lota leuk tambe, very like a chill hangout where we talk about these type of things together. I think it's a bit like good to stimulate the brain juices.
The brain juices. Yes, it is. Gyonne, thank you so much for a nice conversation today. Me quiere pa mi hop on your horse di sa las messages me quiere tapa endarat nos duna nos más importancia, nos storia ng más importancia. Anto, I know it can be like a little uncomfortable sometimes, pero talk about stuff.
Yeah.
Anto, basta ta open to conversation, anto, basta generally escucha, hena ng oro ko nanto contaba algo para sa timan ng historical context of basta, sa itong story ko nanto repeti, hopi, may tabay encourage bo so pa next time ko istorya to repeti, porta po nang tiki atensyon ni nobo. Anto, waxi algo tamane valbo up of tamane stand out. May tere ko we would be surprised sa ronsta cambia no some perspective into these things, the things that we could learn, not just about like historical stuff, pero tambe why people do the things they do, behave the way they behave, anto basta di kong maybe other people also are the way they are, right? All right. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you tuned in today, I had a nice conversation. Si bo catch this episode towards the end. I'm so sorry, pero bapawaka back riba YouTube e Facebook di Kula Fam, di Sincerely Carolina. I boporhan yele back tam riba bo favorite podcasting platform durante si mang. Yeah, follow me on social media. Follow me aina. It's at sincerely.carolina. Of @CNET Talks. I will share the links to the beta version, the mapping, pero también information pa boso por sign up si boso karbay launching event. Anyways, let me know kiko boso karpapi di next time. Si boso karpapi di Carnaval, kiko precis di Carnaval boso karpapi. Manera mabisa. I want to talk to the queens, but if there's anything else, do let me know. Have a nice weekend. Be nice. Be kind. Thank you to my awesome sponsors for allowing me to talk about whatever I want to talk about. Thank you to Laroche, to Toto, to Gain. And thank you to Kula Fam and their listeners. I will see you again next week. Bye. I'm Carolina, and I am the host of Sincerely Carolina, a series of educational conversations about current social issues with local and international experts. Make sure you tune in every Saturday on Cool FM from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.